Hello, and welcome back to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we will be reading Exodus chapter 38. And he made the altar of burnt offering of shittim wood. 5 cubits was the length thereof, and 5 cubits the breadth thereof. It was foursquare, and 3 cubits the height thereof. And he made the horns thereof on the 4 corners of it. The horns thereof were of the same, and he overlaid it with brass. And he made all the vessels of the altar, the pots and the shovels and the basins and the flesh hooks and the fire pans. All the vessels thereof made he of brass. And he made for the altar a brazen grate of network under the compass thereof, beneath unto the midst of it. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 ends of the grate of brass, to be places for the staves. And he made the staves of shittim wood, and overlaid them with brass. And he put the straws into the rings on the sides of the altar, to bear it withal. He made the altar hollow with boards, and he made the laver of brass, and the foot of it of brass, of the looking glasses of the women assembling, which assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he made the court. On the south side, southward, the hangings of the court were of fine twisted linen 100 cubits. Their pillars were 20, and their brazen sockets 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the north side of the hangings were 100 cubits. Their pillars were 20, and their sockets of brass 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the west side were hangings of 50 cubits. Their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the east side eastward 50 cubits. The hangings of the one side of the gate were 15 cubits. Their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And for the other side of the court gate, on this hand and that hand, were hangings of 15 cubits. Their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. All the hangings of the court round about were of fine twined linen. All the hangings of the court round about were of fine twined linen. And the sockets for the pillars were of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver, and the overlaying of their chapitiers of silver, and all the pillars of the court were filleted with silver. And the hanging for the gate of the court was needlework of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twisted linen. And 20 cubits was the length, and the height, and the breadth was 5 cubits, answerable to the hangings of the court. And their pillars were 4, and their sockets of brass 4, their hooks of silver, and the overlaying of their chapitiers and their fillets of silver. And all the pins of the tabernacle and of the court round about were of brass. This is the sum of the tabernacle, even of the tabernacle of testimony, as it was counted, according to the commandment of Moses for the service of the Levites, by the hand of Ithamar, son to Aaron the priest, and Bezaleel, the son Uri, the son of Hur, the tribe of Judah, made all that the Lord commanded Moses. And with him was Aholiab, son of Ahishamach, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver, and a cunning workman, and an embroiderer in blue, and in purple, and in scarlet, and in fine linen. All the gold that was occupied for the work, all, in all the work of the holy place, even the gold of the offering was 20 and 9 talents, and 730 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. And the silver of them that were numbered of the congregation were 100 talents, and 1,760 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary, a bekah for every man, that is, half a shekel, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for every one that went to be numbered, from 20 years old and upward, for 600,000 and 3,550 men. And of the 100 talents of silver were cast the sockets of the sanctuary, and the sockets of the veil, and 100 sockets of the 100 talents, a talent for a socket. And of the 1,775 he made hooks for the pillars, and overlaid their chapitiers, and filleted them. And the brass of the cover of the offering was 70 talents, and 2,400 shekels. And therewith he made the sockets to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the brazen altar, and the brazen grate for it, and all the vessels of the altar, and the sockets of the court round about, and the sockets of the court gate, and all the pins of the tabernacle, and all the pins of the court round about. Summarizing Exodus chapter 38. This is a continuation of the detailed construction of the holy items in Exodus chapter 36 and 37. Bezaleel made the altar in verse 1, the brass horns in verse 2, the brass pots, shovels, basins, flesh hooks, fire pans. In verse 8, he made the looking glasses for the women who served at the tabernacle, and looking glasses were mirrors. So the women who served, uh, it says women who served. In the English Standard Version, it says the women who ministered at the entrance. This kind of sounds like a greeter. But the women who worked in the church, they donated brass mirrors. And they also worked in the church. And then from verse 9 through verse 14, the courtyard was 150 feet long. It was covered by 150-foot long linen curtains. The court was enclosed with hanging fine linens secured with pillars. Verse 21, the tabernacle was complete according to the commandment of Moses for service of the Levites. Aaron's son Ithamar is responsible for the direction of the church. Bezaleel and Aholibama were credited for constructing and engraving period. The amount of gold used is estimated to be at 2,193 pounds. The amount of silver was about 7,545 pounds. So, and then it says in verse 26, a half a shekel of silver was paid by 603,550 men. That's how many men were over 20 years old. And chapter 30, verse 13 and 4, it says that all that passeth over the age of 20, but when it gets to verse 26, it says that this amount was only collected from men. I'm not quite sure if women were included in that, but as we see with the mirrors being donated, women are specified sometimes. So, they just weren't referred to directly right here. So there was 7,545 pounds estimate. That much silver used for the bases of the sanctuary walls. In verse 28, there were 45 pounds of silver to make hooks and rings. And in verse 29, there were 5,310 pounds of bronze for the bases at the tabernacle entrance. And this bronze also made the altar utensils, the curtain posts at the courtyard, the gate base, and the tent pegs. Make sure I don't have anything else for 38. Okay, great, yeah. Thank you for watching. The next upload will be Exodus 39.